day. Welcome to Stuart Broad, to Eoin Morgan, and a very warm welcome to England's captain, Jos Buttler. Great to see you. Thanks for spending some time with us. First things first, how's the wife? And the new arrival is imminent?
Yeah, imminent. So yeah, fingers crossed everything goes well. So got the phone on loud, if needed, and yeah, we've got a plan in place. So fingers crossed, as I said, everything goes well.
I hope it does go well for you. Now, what a shame this is. Drag the players back from the IPL. I imagine you wanted to spend some time with them, not only in the dressing rooms, but obviously get some game time in. How frustrating is this?
Yeah, really frustrating. I've had a really good couple of days prep, and everyone was really excited for the series. I think just putting the England kit back on and playing cricket in England is amazing. So it's really disappointing today not to be playing. But yeah, 3 matches still to look forward to.
But quite a short build-up to a World Cup. What sort of a challenge is that?
Yeah, it's a unique build-up. I think that's why we felt it was good to try and get the players all together. And this series here, it's my personal opinion, there should never be any international cricket that clashes with the IPL. But my first priority at the moment is being England captain and trying to prepare as best we can for a world tournament. So I always said to Keezy, I would definitely be coming back as England captain, and he's made the call on the rest of the players.
What's the messaging that you're trying to get across to the team, yourself and the coach?
I think to play with confidence and some clarity. I think we've got a really nice blended squad. Actually, we've got a lot of experience, but some guys who are really on the upward curve. The likes of Phil Salt, Will Jacks, Harry Brook is still very early really in his international career, and those guys I see sort of really trending in the right direction and pushing this team forward.
Was clarity lacking in the 50-over World Cup, would you say, when you reflect on what you could have perhaps done better?
Yeah, at certain times. And I think that's been a big learning for me, is trying not to confuse freedom with maybe a lack of clarity. I think sometimes you're trying to let players play with freedom and you don't want to sort of step in too much, but making sure you don't miss things, and maybe more communication at times to make sure people are clear on what is needed from them, what they want from me or the coach, and that kind of thing. But certainly there's times where I look back and say I'd probably make similar decisions in certain instances, and for whatever reason they just don't work out. So it's a chapter in the book. It was obviously a really disappointing World Cup, and your pride's dented, your confidence gets dented a bit from those kind of things, but time moves on, and there's a really exciting opportunity now, and looking ahead, like I say, about this World Cup coming up.
How challenging is it though to give that clarity in short space of time leading into this one and another defence of a world title?
Yeah, I think obviously learning those lessons about how can you accelerate those things and be clear with players. I don't say there's a massive lack of clarity. That's it's easy to look at results and say that happened, and like I said, certain things you wouldn't do differently or say differently. We just didn't play well enough, and always way short of, even if there was a lack of clarity, whatever you want to call it, you'd still expect us to perform better than we did.
And like Wardy has mentioned, defending champions. If you're to go back to Australia 2022, that great game in Melbourne where you lifted the trophy, it wasn't all plain sailing throughout that tournament. There was a hiccup along the way. In such a short space of time, can you prepare a culture and a changing room to be able to bounce back if you are challenged in the same way in, say, 10 days' time, 12 days' time?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think you guys are sat here talking as if no one knows what's going on. And I'm pretty sure there's some experienced players in there who know how cricket works, know how to play T20 cricket. So, yeah, I don't think it was trying to sort of reinvent the wheel or trying to give people, messages that they've never heard before. It's about playing good cricket. Tournament cricket, you've got to play crunch moments really well. You've got to come back from adversity really well. And I think that's why you have to read the game and play well and be able to adapt. There might be games where you need to score in excess of 200. There might be games where you need to scrap and try and defend 140 on a wicket that's holding up and is tough for batting.
And part of building towards that clarity, I'd imagine, doesn't just start here and now. It probably started pre-Christmas in the West Indies. Brilliant series, didn't get the win unfortunately, but hugely valuable experience for some of your batters in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was a really good series. Like I say, talking about coming back from adversity, we're 2-0 down in that series, and get back to 2-2 and not be able to win the series is a disappointment. But yeah, some brilliant lessons learned there playing in those conditions. I thought I talked about Phil Salt earlier, 200s back to back. And then he's gone on and played so well in the IPL. And it's, like you say, people on that upward curve, which is exciting. And we want to get back to winning games of cricket, winning series. I think a lot is made at the moment, and there's so many ICC events every year. It's like everything's building towards that. But, if we play today, I want us to win this game of cricket here. I know the World Cup is just around the corner, but let's try and win what's right here in front of us.
Can I pick your brain just on Jofra Archer? Have you got almost a set plan as an England captain? Or are you guided by the medics? How much can he play? Because obviously you're going to want him for key matches in the World Cup, but he needs a bit of bowling in international cricket first as well.
Yeah, he does, absolutely. I think have to manage him through this series. There's a couple of games very close together, but he would be available for the majority of this series. It's great to see him back in an England tracksuit. He's got a huge smile on his face. Know how much he's just enjoying being back in the changing room, and how excited he is to get back on the field in an England shirt.
Is that similar with Mark Wood?
Yeah, he's just got he's always got something, hasn't he? But he puts his body through a bit, bowling that fast. But he's close, but he's probably 1 or 2 games away from being ready to play.
Do you see those two as potentially being a particular point of difference for you out on those pitches? What do you expect conditions to be like? What did you learn when you were out there for those games you mentioned?
Yeah, I think the conditions out there, wickets can be a little bit slow. I think spin will play a big part out there. That extra pace. I think the wind is a big factor on those island grounds. But one thing that probably hasn't been done a lot, which people will have to react quickly to in that World Cup, is the very early starts. I think there's some 10 o'clock or 10:30 starts. So a lot of the time you're playing day-night cricket in T20 or just night cricket. So sort of trying to learn from that. We've got Kieran Pollard, who's going to be part of our coaching staff as well, who brings local experience, but more experience than anyone in T20 cricket, and really looking forward to having him around the group.
What about pick one player I'd like to talk about, Phil Salt. Where has he moved his game forward? Because it seems from afar he's gone an extraordinarily long way in a fairly short space of time.
Yeah, he has. I think one of the great things about him, he's got that insatiable appetite to learn. He's not afraid of asking questions. If he's always wanting feedback, what can I do to get better? Every training session he's trying to clearly work on something to improve. Personally, I see he's really improved his offside game. He's always been very, very strong through the leg side, but watching him back in the IPL especially, I thought he was so hard to bowl at because he scored so freely through the offside, and he's never going to lose that leg side game as well. So and I think probably one of his things in the past would be those sort of 30 off 15 or 25 off 10, but he's been able to go on and really extend those innings, which he showed great maturity, and is going to be one of a real key player for us.
He can keep too. Is he going to keep?
Nope.
Now, we've seen it from afar, the IPL, and we've seen some of these phenomenal scores and this ridiculous hitting that we see on the screens. I was actually listening to a game on the radio the other day, and Simon Mann was just saying 6, it's 6, it's 6 all the way through. How much of that has been down to the impact player? Or do you think that is something that we might see taken into this World Cup?
I think the impact player has a big part of it. Obviously, the batting lineups are extended. It's 12-a-side game, isn't it? It's not like football where someone can only come on for 15 minutes or something. The guy can play a full part in the game. But it will be interesting to see. I think batters, especially over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, have really improved and sort of had their eyes open more in a mindset of what can be achieved. I think even really experienced players, you're watching sort of reinvent themselves a bit and take more risk early and sort of open their eyes as to what they can achieve with the bat. That's where I think the challenge is for the bowlers. There's always a premium on execution. Can you do something different? Can you be smarter with your plans? I think that's where the captain and bowler have to be really good about sort of executing every single ball as best they can.
Someone's waving at you, Rizwan.
He looks a bit wet. But yeah, I do think it's a real challenge for the bowlers is to not get down on yourselves and negative and defeatist to say, I can't bowl, it's too hard. It's like, well, what can you do? And if you can, you're going to make yourself very valuable.
I was going to say, will the bowlers win this World Cup, given the power that you're now seeing in the IPL? You mentioned the impact player, but also another question is, are players just hitting it further now? Is it all that training, all of those T20 games that you're playing around the world in different conditions, bearing fruit in how far the ball's disappearing?
Yeah, I think so. I think cricketers have become much better athletes for a while now, but especially now really training power hitting. There's probably more players in the world now who are specific T20 players, maybe even specific hitters of a cricket ball. And obviously I think as a batter it's easier to get volume. I'd be interested to hear from Broady as a bowler. You probably can't go and bowl for 4 hours like a batter could practice for so long. So how you can really upskill as a bowler without maybe volume would be a good question.
Yeah, I mean, particularly difficult in franchise cricket where you're on a plane, you might have one training day, but you also can't go and bowl 7-8 overs on your training day practicing skills before the game the next day because you might be playing IPL, sometimes 40 degrees, so you're having to save yourself for the game. So you need to use these sort of blocks of time you get potentially as a white ball cricketer to develop your skills. Someone like Adil Rashid's had a block of time now, Mark Wood, although he's got a little niggle, maybe that these little blocks you can work on particular skills. I think it's very difficult in a series or in a World Cup to nail your practice and get a lot of workload in, particularly if you're carrying a niggle that you might have had for 3 or 4 months and you're just protecting. But the IPL's been an interesting one because the batting has been outstanding, hasn't it? It's been phenomenal. But going to the Caribbean and America, we don't know what the pitches will be. We know the Indian pitches are superb, so really it will be the batting units that adapt to those conditions pretty quickly. I'm not saying necessarily think Antigua's going to be a 240 pitch or a 260 pitch that we've seen in the IPL. So I think the World T20 is going to be a lot about bowlers thinking on the feet, maybe bowling cross seamers into the pitch, using the wind that Jos mentioned. I know it's ages ago, but the World Cup we won in the Caribbean, 2010 I think it was.
Back in my day.
We just used the wind, honestly. We didn't bowl Yorkers or anything. We just bowled slow ball bouncers, like long ops basically, into the pitch and got them to hit into the wind. And we were the only team that adjusted to that really quickly. So going to the Caribbean, England play a huge amount of 2020 cricket over there, probably more than any other team apart from the Windies. It's I think that sets England up pretty nicely, having good experience out there. Do
you wince when you see some of the hitting now?
Oh no, I suffered quite badly back in the early days. So no, it's phenomenal, to be honest, isn't it? I mean, some of the power play striking in those first 6 overs is just outstanding. But bowlers are. Bowlers have to accept that you're going to have tricky days, but also they need to catch up. I think batters over the last 5 years have jumped ahead in the level of skill, and the bowlers probably haven't quite made that next step with levelling up. And whether that's going to be slow ball Yorkers wide or whatever it's going to be, there'll be something that comes where the bowlers find a way. But I think the impact player in the IPL has had quite a big. It's been a big issue for the bowlers because you take early wickets and you still have someone come in at 8 who hits you miles. If one of your charges is going round the park, a la Ben Stokes perhaps in that final, how should a captain handle it? What did you learn from that experience? Because it's going to happen. I mean, the pitches might not be as good as India and they don't have the impact player. But the power, as Jos has just said, is still there. So it's going to happen, probably on several occasions. Yeah, it certainly will. And even just quickly on conditions, Broady mentioned it'll play a big part. When the wickets are slower or you're playing with a little bit of wind, there are 2 things it does for me. It brings out the better batsman in a batting unit, and it brings out the ultimate power hitter because they can hit sixes regardless. Andre Russell, Jos is one of them. Number of people around the world become even more valuable. And then I believe the side, like Broady has mentioned, who adapts the quickest will be the most successful side. And when things are going against you, like you've alluded to in Calcutta back in 2016, my biggest lesson then, and I thought I did it at the time, was actually trying to give the person as much time as possible. And I've watched it back a lot over the years, and I've learned the one thing I certainly did was, yes, slowly try and run over to the bowler, get the ball in my hand for as long as possible, try and communicate, get the bowler talking, make sure he's reiterating his plan that we'd spoken about previously, or if we had to change it and take more time. That was your job. The captain cannot bowl the ball for the team, but you can create a very small environment or bubble to increase the chances of that person performing. And I didn't do that for Ben Stokes in 2016.
Have you thought about scenarios like that? Because you poo-pooed my Phil Salt keeping, but I was thinking maybe you could stand at mid-off and you're a bit closer to the bowler. Now, I know you've got your Lieutenant Mo up there, but there might be a period where someone's getting clobbered and you're quite a long way away. Have you thought how you might handle situations like that?
Yeah, I've got feet. I can run down there and talk to him.
You're on the clock, though.
Yeah, but I don't. It's like a real big myth sometimes. I think that I know maybe sort of really late decisions that sort of stood at mid-off, being able to just stand next to the bowler and then go. But between balls, there's ways you can, between the over, communicate. There's different ways I can slow the game down for the bowler away from that. And I'm, like I said, using my really experienced players like Moeen Ali to do that. And that's where it's really important, the work you do on the training ground as well, sort of being stood around the bowlers, practicing, talking things through, having the team meetings and plans of what we might do. Plan A is a lot of the time very similar, and then but actually the stuff we need to work on is B, C, D. What happens if this happens to? What happens if you get hit here, or those kind of things. So just having those conversations in the dressing room, on the team bus, when you go out for dinner, you can sort of drip feed those things in and sort of work out things that you can do. And absolutely, that's why I like keeping, because I feel like I've got the best view to see exactly what's happening. I can sort of make calls. I know when Morgs was captain, he would come to the keeper a lot and want to gather information. So I've got a lot of that to hand. Excuse me. And then it's just about making sure I find those times I can get to the bowler. And like you say, sometimes Morg spoke about slowing the game down. I can do that from walking as a wicket-keeper all the way down, taking some sting out of the game. So there's a lot of benefits to being the keeper as well.
And you'd say on top of that, it's not always about trying to slow the game down. It's recognising opportunities, which Jos does so well. And when you are wicketkeeper, you see MS Dhoni doing it. You see Brendan McCullum, who has done it, well, throughout his whole of his playing career, is speed the game up. When you're on top, you have the ability. Absolutely, because you can embody that time that is needed to get through and recognise that you're on top to bring a bit of existential pressure from elsewhere.
Have you thought much about the first fixtures and the way they line up? Because you've got Scotland, then Australia, then Namibia, Oman. I think it's in that way round. So 3 sides that you are less familiar with. You know all about Australia. How much research goes in? The stats people coming up and explaining things to you, or is it more a feel on the day?
Yeah, I think a mixture of everything. I know there's so much information now in cricket and data and video, and we've got analysts who'll be building those kind of packages for the players to make sure there's no surprises. But this is a big thing I've learned all the way throughout my career. Every day is still different. You can't go in with too many preconceived ideas. There's still an element of gut feel on the day, or you might plan that this guy's going to bowl this over, and this, and he's actually not bowling that well. So someone else is having a hell of a day out, and so you still have to make decisions all the time throughout the game. So trying not to play the game before it's been played is important, but making sure there isn't any surprises is going to be really valuable as well.
Defending champions, excited?
Yeah, really excited. That's a great honour. Anytime, it's nice to say defending champions, but we want to go and win it again.
Well, good luck to you. We hope to see you out on the field on Saturday. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Broady, how would you say your first day at Sky went? Officially now Sky and...
As a player, I quite enjoyed rain, but it's less enjoyable in here, isn't it?
It's pretty cold anyway.
He's never happy, I tell you what.
We've got this to look forward to as we go through the year.